Hi friends, good morning. So today's conversation will be in a series of webinars which we'll be doing on understanding the Reserve Bank of India. So to start off with, we would focus on try and understand the financials of RBI to the extent possible, and then move on to understand specific operations of RBI in this regard. Moving on, I would thank Vigneshwar and Jugal for helping me with the presentation, and more so Dr. Balu from RBI, who's the present ombudsman, for actually spending a good amount of time with me to help me understand the nitty-gritties of the balance sheet. So these are some of the terms which we have used: contingency fund, central government, FCI, GOI, Government of India, IMF, liquidity adjustment facility, marginal standing facility, of course, RBI, SARC, and SG for state government. Moving on, this is the agenda for the discussion. We'll have a high-level overview of RBI, what are the twin departments of RBI, what they call as the issue department and banking department. Significant accounting policies, the key operational matrices of RBI, trends in performance of RBI, the income of RBI from where it comes, expenditure of RBI, liabilities, assets, and also we'll at the higher level look at how the Federal Reserve functions. Federal Reserve, because invariably whenever someone talks about the central bank, there is this tendency to look at what the big boy does, and just a quick high level peek on how the central bank and Central Bank of India and US, how different are they? So RBI, when we look at an overview, it was established in 1935, and in accordance with the provisions of RBI 19 Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the central office of RBI was initially established in Kolkata, but it was moved to Mumbai in 1937, and that's where it is now. Originally the entire share capital of 5 crores was allotted to public, except shares worth 2.2 lakh face value, which were assigned to the central government. The number of original shareholders from various locations. So in Mumbai, we had 28,000, Calcutta, 24,000 approximate, Delhi, 23,000, Madras, Chennai now 14,000, and Burma, Rangoon, 3,157. RBI has 27 regional offices, and most of them in state capitals, and 4 sub offices. So if we look at the constitution of RBI, so we have the governor, the deputy governor, who are all, if you look at the central board of directors, you have the central board of directors on top, and within the CBD, you have governor, deputy governors, executive directors, principal CGMs, chief general managers, DGMs, AGMs, managers, assistant managers, and support staff. And even within them, if you look at the number of directors, and if we were to classify the directors, you have the official directors and you also have the non-official directors. Official directors, you have the governor, and you at least have 4 deputy governors. And non-official directors, those nominated by the government, 10 directors from different fields and 2 government officials. And others, you have 4 directors, 1 each from 4 local bodies. Moving on, how did the RBI come into existence and how it has evolved from where it was originally thought through to where it is now? In 1950s, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru introduced a centrally planned economic policy which focused on the agricultural sector, and RBI was supposed to support the economic plans with loans. In 1960s, consequent to bank crashes, the RBI was requested to establish and monitor a deposit insurance system. Subsequently, the government of India restructured the national bank market and nationalized a lot of institutions under the Indira Gandhi regime. As a result, the RBI had to play a crucial part of control support of this public sector banking. Post nationalization of commercial banks in 1980, the RBI became the central player, and it increased its policies relating to various aspects like interest, reserve ratio, and visible deposits. In 1995, the RBI founded a subsidiary company called Bharatiya Reserve Bank Note Mudran Private Limited to produce bank notes. Today, the primary role of RBI is to regulate the issue of bank notes, to keep reserves, to secure monetary stability in India. and generally to operate the currency and credit system in the best interest of the country. And RBI performs various functions as bankers bank. We call the RBI the lender of last resort, custodian of foreign reserve, controller of credit, and to manage printing and supply of currency notes in the country. Functions of RBI: it's a as a monetary authority. It formulates, implements, and monitors monetary policy. As a regulator and supervisor of payment and settlement systems, maintains public confidence in payment and settlement system, is the issuer of currency, developmental roles which performs promotional activities, functions to support national objectives like controlling inflation or maintaining liquidity in the system, regulator and supervisor of the financial system, manager of foreign exchange. The FEMA Act comes under the purview of RBI, and related functions like it's a banker to the government as well as a banker to the banks. It performs merchant banking function for all government debt issues. So if we look at the twin departments of RBI, what we call as a BD and ID, so banking department and issue department. In the banking department, it handles the various banks' services for the government as well as other banks. And there are 14 branches of the BD, and each is headed by a joint or a deputy manager. Public debt, public accounts, securities, and deposit accounts. And similarly, under the ID, if you notice, it's concerned with proper and efficient management of note issue, because issue, as we say, is pertaining to notes. And the country has been divided into, again, 14 circles of issue, and each having an office of issue. So with the issue department deals with resource operations, and general department deals with cash transactions. So the assets of the issue department consists of, as they say, gold coins and gold bullion, foreign securities, rupee coins, and rupee securities. Friends, please understand, 1 rupee notes and coins are not issued by RBI. So if at all RBI has, it would come under the ambit of assets. But in any other case, notes issued are RBI's liability. Now let's get into the numbers part, being accountants. The financial statements are prepared, the significant accounting policies as in accordance with the RBI Act, and they follow accrual system of accounting except for penal interest. The income and expenditure in foreign currency are recorded at exchange rates prevailing on the last day of the business week or month or year, as the case may be. Transactions in gold and foreign currency assets and liabilities are accounted on a settlement basis. Fixed assets are stated at cost less depreciation, and except art and paintings on freehold land, which are held at cost. And similarly, repo transactions are treated as lending. So if you notice, repo is a case where if a bank requires money, they would pledge Government of India securities, and they would borrow from RBI. Reverse repo is where RBI gives Government of India securities and picks up funds from banks. That's what we call as repo and reverse repo. And these are being treated as loans and advances where RBI gives loans, which is repo transaction. And reverse repo will come under the ambit of deposits, which are shown under deposit others. So the key operational metrics is the balance sheet of RBI increased by, so billion is 100 crores. So when we look at it, it increased by 4.8 trillion rupees. So, or typically 4,85,000 crores. And while income for the year increased by 146%, the expenditure increased by 40% approximately. And how you look at it is, for the year, the RBI earned 1.75 lakh crores. That's why the Government of India picked up a huge dividend last year, and it comes from that. And this is compared to the 50,000 crores what RBI earned the year before. And if you notice, the single largest reason for increase in this money is because of write back of excess provision amounting to 52,000 crores from contingency fund to income. And this was done after the central board had concluded that RBI's financial resilience was well within the range. The contingency fund is a specific provision which is meant for meeting unexpected expenses. There was a lot of criticism around it. The increase on the asset side was due to increase in domestic and foreign investments. And you would notice, as we see the balance sheet, the RBI makes an investment only in Government of India bonds or treasury bills and in securities of foreign central bank, which are for foreign central bank. So we don't invest in corporate bonds irrespective of their rating. So that's basically one of the policies of RBI. On the liability side was increased. The increase in liabilities was because of increase in notes issued, and other liabilities and provisions increased roughly about 17%. Domestic assets constituted 28%, while foreign currency assets and gold constituted 71.97%. So when we look at this ratio, this is where what you would see in your news reports that RBI has $450 billion of foreign currency assets of Forex. So this Forex, what they effectively mean is the value of foreign securities held by RBI, and that ratio in the total balance sheet is 72 is to 28. 72 is overseas assets and gold, and 28 is Government of India securities. So if we see the trends in RBI's performance, friends, so the dark green is the total income. The expenditure is significantly lower. And the decrease in expenditure was because of lower provision made to asset development fund, which was at 0.64 as against 141 in the earlier year. And also the write back has significantly contributed to increase in the gains last year. So after excluding the provision for write back from contingency fund, there is still a steep income, which is basically because of the gains in 2018-19 amounting to 289 billion, which is roughly about 29,000 crores, as against a loss of 40,000 crores, primarily because of forex gains and losses. And again, out of the 1,147 billion increase in income, the write back of excess was 526 billion. And so, therefore, the financial performance of RBI last year was far better than the earlier years. So, which is where the government felt, why leave such excessive money with RBI? So, let's pull it out on the form of dividends. So, if you notice, friends, the interest income of RBI last year was about 1,000 billion. So, you can add two zeros to this number. So, about 1 lakh crores was total income, interest income of RBI, and other income was about 86,000 crores. So totally about 1.9 lakh crores is what RBI has received. And it spends on printing of notes alone about 4,800 crores. And its largest cost was employee cost, which increased from 3,900 to 3,800 to 6,800 crores. But that again, you would see there was a retirement superannuation contribution, which led to that increase. But otherwise, you would see from earlier year to current year, there is a huge difference, and largely because of the provisions, 1,41,000 crores, which no longer is relevant. So, and at the end of the year, the amount transferred to central government during the year, last year was about 10,000 crores. This year is about 28,000 crores during the year. So net, RBI has a surplus, and which goes to the central government. So if you see the total income of RBI, this is the cross section of RBI's income. From domestic sources, RBI has earned about 1.18 lakh crores. And from rupee securities, it was 661,000 crores. Interest on loans and advances, what it earns from banks on repo operations, 15,000 crores, 1,500 crores. Other earnings, which basically had provisions no longer required, was 52,000 crores. Overseas, 750 crores, and earning from foreign currency asset effectively. Now let's try and understand income from foreign sources increased significantly from 274 billion to almost 3 times. It went up from the earlier year. It was because of rise in yield and interest rates across, and the movement in exchange rates. So when rupee depreciates, obviously this number will go up. The net income of domestic sources also increased 132%. mainly because of increase in coupon income due to increase in the portfolio. Net income under the LAF or MSF operations, which is again the repo operations, in net liquidity injection. So when RBI induces more liquidity, they are lending more to the banks. So under the LAF liquidity adjustment facility, when banks need liquidity to meet its daily requirement, they borrow from RBI by pledging their Government of India bonds. So the RBI borrowing is entirely secured by GOI security investments. And marginal standing facility is a window for banks to borrow from RBI in an emergency situation. When interbank liquidity dries up completely, they pledge again government securities at a higher rate than repo under LAF. The net interest income from LAF and MSF was $11.18 billion, which effectively means RBI had induced significant amount of liquidity. Whereas in the earlier year, we've had a loss of 9,400 crores, which effectively meant RBI had to suck up liquidity from the system in 17-18. And due to increase in net liquidity and the injection in the banking system. So because of which RBI had to pay more. Interest on holding of rupee securities and oil bonds increased by 21% on account of increase in RBI's government securities consequent to net purchase of 3,300 of treasury bills. So you would see whenever the RBI intervenes to stabilize the exchange rate, so they print notes and buy foreign securities to keep the exchange rates in order. That's how the foreign security balances also increase over a period of time. Rupee securities are securities which are denominated in INR. Oil bonds, earlier regimes, whenever the governments used to subsidize oil companies, they would issue oil bonds which would be picked up by RBI or it should be acquired. And that's only a government collateral, which I mean, Government of India issued bonds where the government is postponing the cash out at a later point in time. Profit on sale and redemption of rupee securities decreased 0.4 billion in 1819 as against 60.36 billion in 1718 on account of lower sale of rupee securities amounting to roughly about 60 crores as compared to 900 crores. So the net income or premium from amortization of securities decreased, but these are small numbers. I'm not getting into it. Uh, Due to higher utilization of ways and means advance. Ways and means is more like an OD account. Uh, by central and state governments, the interest income went up by 120%. So it's like the current account which these institutions have with RBI. Commission income earned was higher because whenever RBI prints more notes, the notes gets printed here on the liability side. On the asset side, treasury bills automatically gets issued and they get paid a fee by the government as merchant bankers to the government. And with respect to other incomes, the increase from 3.73 to 526 is basically because of excess provision write back. Now let's move to the expenditure part. Actually, nothing of significance. If you notice, friends, you have the employee cost, which is ballooned from the earlier year because of a superannuation provision. Printing of notes. So RBI spends about 4,800 crores a year on printing of notes alone. Agency charges and commission is what they earn as well as they incur on intermediary operations. This was paid. Agency was paid on account of government business increased from 0.57 billion, which might be due to a substantial increase in underlying government transactions. So, I'm just moving on to the supply of notes. So during the year, supply of notes during the year 1819 was at close to 30,000 million pieces, which was almost 17% higher than the earlier year. But the effective expenditure in this purpose has come down by 2%. This is basically because of downward revision of printing rates by Bharatiya Reserve Bank Note Mudran Private Limited. Other expenses consisting of expenditure on remittance of currency, printing and stationery of audit fees related expenses. And these are not very material, but still about 14,000 crores, 1,400 crores. Now let's look at the balance sheet of RBI. Very, very interesting document. So if you notice, friends, I think the highest level. On the liability side, we've got three major numbers. And on the asset side, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. I think you know these 10 numbers, you know the balance sheet of RBI. So let's look at the deposits. On the liability side, of course, there's nothing in capital or reserve fund. The funds, anyway, annually, whatever is a profit is transferred to the central government. And we saw whenever RBI gives loan, it comes under loans and advances in the repo facility to banks. And whenever RBI takes loan under the reverse repo, it comes under deposits. Other liabilities and provision, they are for various reasons. We'll be seeing that. What is very interesting is notes issued. So 21 lakh crores, 21.6 lakh crore is the value of notes issued by RBI and which is outstanding as on date. And this is increased from 19.11 lakh crores. So if you see the increase, friends, it's roughly about 2.5 lakh crores. That's the excess notes which have been issued. Now, if you notice in India, whenever notes are issued in India, it is backed by gold or foreign currency assets. There are two assets which are acceptable. So if you notice in your on the right side, asset side of the balance sheet, you have investments in the assets of issue department, which is issue department. When we say it is your department which issues these notes. Investments in foreign currency is about 20,900 crores, 20.9 lakh crores, and gold coin is roughly about 80,000 crores. So you sum up these two, you get somewhere about 21.6, very similar to where this number is, which is 21.6. So this should give you an understanding that whatever notes we issue, it is backed by the assets of the issue department. And that's how this mechanism works. And the banking department, so which also has investments in foreign currency, it also has investments in domestic government of India treasury bonds. Now, in the numbers, what you see, which are published in the newspapers, saying India's foreign currency reserves went up by 450, went up to 450 billion. Now, how does that 450 billion or 400 billion comes? You sum up item number 7 in the 7th schedule, which is 20,800, plus go back on the assets department. There is an investment in foreign currency BD, investment in foreign currency ID. Sum up both of these. So 20.9 plus 6.9, you keep it as 7. So it comes to 27.9, which is roughly about 400 billion, or there 380 billion, whatever, dollars. That is the sum of your foreign currency assets which get published. So we don't obviously hold in dollars. We hold it in the form of, say, treasury bills of foreign countries. And if you see India's foreign currency, it is held uh, based on sovereign securities of Japan, US, UK, and the Eurozone. The exact ratio in which each of these countries' collaterals are held is not available, primarily because of security reasons, because that's based on the government of India's perception, risk perception of these economies. Then at the high level, it's clear. And whenever RBI issues notes, what it can do, let's say tomorrow RBI is going to issue this 21.7 lakh crore is going to become 22.7 lakh, another 1 lakh crore is going to get issued. Instantly, RBI will also issue domestic currency, the government of India treasury bills to that extent of 1 lakh crores. And then what will happen is this money will be used to acquire foreign currency, or it will be used to lend to institutions. So RBI doesn't print notes and keep it with itself. So the case for why RBI cannot print notes, no one says RBI cannot print notes. If it prints, it has to issue Government of India bonds, and what that will do, it will automatically increase the domestic debt of the government, so that balance sheet will automatically get strained. So the problem for printing notes is not with the RBI, it is with the Government of India's debt to equity ratio or public debt to GDP ratio. Liabilities of RBI. So if you notice the liabilities of RBI, so worthy of relevance is deposits, which has about 7.6 lakh crores of deposits. These are from your reverse repo operations and other liabilities and provisions. We saw how from contingency fund about 50,000 crores or significant number was written back this year. And similarly, every note issued by RBI is a liability of RBI, and that note has to be backed by collaterals, which we saw gold or foreign currency. Yes, Rajiv, reverse repo, I will come in a brief. We'll be seeing the asset side as well. So we saw that in a bit when we went earlier. I'll quickly come back to repo and reverse repo operations in a while, Rajiv. I'll do that. Anyway, thanks for your question. So if we were to break up the liabilities of RBI, so what it does at this point is the issue department reflects the quantum of currency in circulation, which is roughly about 21 trillion, or as of now 21 lakh crores. The above increase was on account of continued efforts of RBI to supply adequate quantity of banknotes to meet transactional needs of the public. Let's take an example. Suddenly, if there is a flight of foreign capital, or there is a huge influx of foreign capital, FDI increases, exports increase. Now, what will happen? There will be a lot of dollars which will be coming into the country when exports increase. And the more dollars come, so let's say you have a bank account with SBI and you receive $1 million into that account. Now, SBI cannot have an open position in dollar. So what SBI has to do, at the end of the day, it has to give that money to RBI and take INR. So when it gives it to RBI has to give cash to get dollars, which is when instantly it will increase the note supply, if at all, assuming the market is not liquid or there is not many takers for the dollars and all those. These are those money market operations, what they say, where RBI buys and sells currency. When the RBI consistently keeps buying foreign currency to keep the exchange rate in check, that's when it will start printing notes also on one side, which will automatically increase the liability as well as the asset on the other side. So this is how the increase in forex balance actually happens. Now comes a case for what our friend Rajiv also asked about repo and reverse repo operations. Now, and marginal standing facility. Oh, let's look at a situation where a bank needs money. There is a liquidity issue with the bank, and if you look at the current scenario, banks don't have collections. There's a huge moratorium has been given, and that's why you would see RBI has come and given that 3.5 lakh crore stimulus last time, where they said long-term repo operations will be permitted, which means that banks can go and pledge their collaterals, security, and borrow at a repo rate of 4%, whatever. That is the rate at which the banks will borrow from RBI. Now tomorrow, this is how RBI will increase liquidity with these banks. Now let us assume banks have excessive liquidity. Then what happens? RBI will pull out funds from banks. Consequently, and in this is a case where RBI borrows from the banks. And this money will go to Government of India securities, whatever RBI pulls out. Now, by doing that, RBI is now sucking up liquidity in the hands of the banks. This is what we call as reverse repo. So, repo and reverse repo operations are based on the liquidity situation. If RBI wants to give more liquidity to banks, we use repo. If we want to suck up liquidity, we use what is called as reverse repo operations. I hope that is clear, Rajiv. Moving on. So, the total deposits increased by 17.2% from 6 lakh crores, 6.5 lakh crores or 6.5 billion to 7.5 billion, and which comprise of deposits from banks, government securities, and other deposits. Deposit others is your reverse repo operations. So what you asked, so where the RBI has increased the liquidity suction mechanism to the tune from 1,400 to 2,100 uh, billion. Now, the balance in currency and gold revaluation decreased from 6.9 billion to 6.64. What does that mean? Which is because of depreciation of major currencies against the US dollars, and it is partly compensated by the rise in price of gold. Because you would notice, friends, even though the foreign currency investments are in a basket of currencies, it is not only in dollars. So we need to be very clear that India's foreign currency investment is not only in dollars. As I said, it is made in four currencies: euro, yen, dollar, and pound. So, under such circumstances, we also benchmark the exchange fluctuation with respect to dollars. So, there will be a net surplus or deficit. And thanks to the fact that gold also has a fluctuating value, that exchange fluctuation is also part of the CGRA, currency and gold revaluation balance. And this provides a buffer against exchange rate or gold price fluctuations at a later point in time. And RBI obviously doesn't pay income tax. If you look at the other liabilities, that's roughly about 11,600 crores in the balance sheet of RBI. It comprises of CGRA to the tune of 6,600, contingency fund 1,900. This is where there was a write back. Asset development fund 228. Investment revaluation account, which is again rupee securities 494. Here there has been a positive increase to the tune of 272%. Gratuity and superannuation fund, we saw that in the expenditure portion also there was close to about 30,000 crores of increase. So not 30,000, 3,000 crores of increase. And foreign exchange forward contract valuation, all these are small items. Miscellaneous, we have about 13,300 crores. Now let's go to the asset side of the balance sheet. We have already seen most of it, just giving you a detailed perspective. Banking department, gold, coin, and bullion. RBI has an investment of about 88,000 crores in the banking department, and in the issue department we have another close to 80,000 crores. Now this rupee coin is the steel coins, which are again assets investments by RBI. Investment in subsidiaries, we saw the mint printing subsidiary of RBI. Again, loans and advances is from the repo operation. And investments in foreign and domestic currency, we've seen that earlier as well when we saw the balance sheet of RBI. So the value as on 30th of June, please understand, friends, RBI's financial year is from July to June. That's basically based on the RBI Act, and from next year it's getting harmonized till 31st of March. So this year would be a shorter year, only for 10 months. And the RBI's holding of domestic securities increased by 57%, which comprise of dated government rupee securities, T-bills, and special oil bonds. And this was again on account of liquidity management operations. So the RBI will increase its printing of notes, and moment notes get printed, the GOI security also get issued simultaneously. RBI doesn't keep liquid cash. The amount outstanding under other assets increased by almost 60% on account of interim transfers made to central government. And other assets comprise of swap amortization, revaluation of forward contract accounts, and miscellaneous accounts. I'll spend some time on how the swap mechanisms work in some time. The rest all are smaller items. The loans and advances is the significant item here, which comprise of close to 93,000 crores of balances, which comprise of loans given to central government, state government, and scheduled commercial bank, and lending through repo operations to financial institutions. Investment subsidiaries not very material. DICGC, Deposit Credit Guarantee, RBI's information technology platform, the banknote printing platform, Indian Financial Technology and Allied Services, and National Center for Financial Education. Foreign currency assets, we saw the total value, it pertains to about roughly 28,000 crores, 28 lakh crores. And the RBI has agreed to make resources available under the IMF's new arrangement to borrow, and India's commitment to special drawing rights is roughly about $4.446 billion or 4.4 billion SDR. See, again, friends, you need to understand what this SDR is. The special drawing rights is more what I would say, a new kind of currency at the World Bank, and it is again backed by a basket of currencies. So there is no bias towards any one particular currency. And India has agreed to contribute a particular quantum to SDR. So which what we have agreed is 6.17 billion, and what we have paid so far is 0.4 under the new arrangements to borrow scheme. And in terms of note purchase agreement, we still have SDR denominated notes of IMS for an amount equivalent to 10 billion. Okay, so this and the last piece is interesting. We need to understand this is India's soft power using what we call as financial diplomacy. With a view to strengthening the regional financial and economic cooperation, the RBI has agreed to offer an amount of $2 billion, both in foreign currency and INR, under the SARC swap arrangement to SARC member countries. As on 30th June, swap with Bhutan was 0.1 billion. So, what does this swap mean? So, typically, let us say Bhutan wants dollars. It's importing oil and it requires dollars, and it does not have dollars. So, Bhutan central bank will take a limit from RBI. It will pledge the government of India securities which the Bhutanese government holds. Because you should also understand that some of these smaller countries hold balances in INR, just as how we hold foreign currency balance securities, dollar denominated securities. Some of these smaller countries hold balances in INR. So, for that reason, and India also acts as a not a lender of last resort, but still to the extent of their requirements, we do support them. So that's why this currency swap arrangement, where India will allow these institutions, these central banks of these smaller countries like Mauritius or Sri Lanka or Nepal or Bhutan, to give the government of India securities or their own central bank securities to India. On that basis, India would allow them to borrow in dollars because of what we have, our forex balances. So when they allow us to borrow in dollars, when we allow these institutions to borrow in dollars, we also help their currency stay stable. We act as a stable financial partner for them, and RBI also makes money in this bargain. Every swap transaction is a banking transaction, so we do make fees in this bargain. So that's how the diplomacy works in this space. So just to give you a perspective about how Federal Reserve operates, we're not getting into the detail, but I just want you to look at certain specific aspects of the Federal Reserve. Again, central banking system of US, it's geographically divided into 12 districts, um, and each will be separately incorporated Reserve Bank. And the frameworks of Federal Reserve Act provided for a central banking system with three features: one, central governing board, decentralized operating structure of 12 reserve banks, a combination of public and private characteristics. And there will be seven members, and these are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. A full term is of 14 years. One term begins every 2 years on February 1st. The chairman and vice chairman of the board are named by the president, and they serve a term of 4 years. Now, the role is to stabilize the economy, conduct monetary policies, supervising and regulating financial institutions and activities, fostering safety and efficiency in payment and settlement system, promotes consumer protection and community development. These are some of the high level objectives. If you were to compare, we look at the balance sheet. This is very interesting. I believe it's about $41 trillion balance sheet. And if you see the largest assets are treasury securities in dollars, and federal agency and government sponsored enterprise mortgage backed securities. You would never see that in an RBI. We don't issue on the basis of mortgage backed securities. RBI only trades on Government of India securities. And Federal Reserve has not invested in any other foreign currency. And you would see a similar scenario with UK as well, or with Germany, because they feel that their own government securities are the safest in the world. So they wouldn't be venturing to investing in any other securities, which is why these central banks and these economies are far more self-reliant than India. I think the very fact that we are dependent on a foreign currency for even printing notes really makes us vulnerable to foreign sanctions. And these are the liabilities again. If you notice, friends, the notes outstanding are roughly about $17 trillion, and or 1.7 trillion. I think I'm making a mistake there, on a total $4 trillion balance sheet. And if you see, depository institutions is roughly about $1.5 trillion, and the rest are all fairly what you say smaller number, non-material numbers. So these are the differences between the two. I'm not getting into the differences at this point in time. But if you see, the capital paid in is significant. I mean, this is roughly roughly about $31 billion. I mean, RBI's capital is 5 crores, so less than $1 million. So yes, we've got a huge gap to bridge at this point in time. So these were some of our thoughts, friends, on this very interesting debate on RBI. So this research has given us a chance to interact with many stakeholders from RBI, and over time you would see us, at least the next few weeks, deepening our understanding of money market operations. What are the types of currencies? M1, M2, broad money. What do you mean by broad money, and how basically the central bank actually functions? So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, do let us know. Else catch up again at a later point. Thank you.